Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be taking a look at this record here, which is the brand new album by Sam Fender entitled People Watching. So yes, I'll just be doing my usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then going over each of the album's tracks in detail. Okay, so it's been a bit of a while since his last album, which was 2021's 17 Going Under. But since that album's release, he's grown even sort of like higher, like in like stature, like as like an artist, like sort of like from like that album, like sort of like coming out, like the title track like off that went top 3 like on like the singles charts, which charts like some 4 months after the album's release, which is unthinkable both in terms of like a song sort of like having already been out like for so long, suddenly sort of taking off like as a chart hit, but also music off this genre, you know, like getting into like the top 5 like off like the charts, that was quite something. And he then spent like he then spent like the following summer, like after like the album's released, performing some quite significant gigs and like headlining like many like off like the summer festivals. But after like the promotion duties for 17 Going Under were done, Fender took a bit of a hiatus, but also during that time also returned to like the studio to sort of start like meticulously crafting this album. So this album is predominantly produced by 2 producers. One is a guy called Marcus Dravs, who has worked previously with the likes of Arcade Fire, Mumford & Sons and Coldplay. So kind of like a bit more like a kind of mainstream kind of sort of like producer, like kind of like sort of thing. Like they're not the most edgy artists going like those ones like I listed there. But then the other half like of the album is produced by a guy called Adam Grandicello. I think that's how you say his name. I probably butchered that, but he's like anyway, he's from a band called like the War on Drugs, so like I would say, despite this kind of split like in like producing duties, as like half of them like are like Javs, like half of them like all like War on Drugs, it's like it doesn't feel disjointed, this album, like at all. Now this period was apparently a very sort of productive time like for Sam Fender. He wrote apparently, I struggle to believe this, but about 70 songs like they worked on and like were in contention for this album, but in the end, like 11 made it onto the album, and then a handful others have become B-sides. And he said like in interviews like more recently, to promote this album, that he's actually got like his next 2 albums like already like lined up like and ready to go basically. In terms of commercial success, it's too early to say. I am only filming this on the Sunday after the album has come out, but I will be very shocked if this didn't get to number 1, because his last 2 albums got to number 1, and he's like even more popular now than he ever was like when both of those albums came out. The critical reception to this has been, I would say, fairly unanimously positive, aside from a slightly confusing, middling review in the Independent newspaper. Like all the other reviews like I've seen, like have been like 4 or 5 stars like across like the block. So yeah, fairly unanimous praise for this album. So anyway, I will try to go over my vinyl copy of it here. I also bought the CD like in a bundle, but that's really not worth showing. Like there's not a whole lot going on like with like the CD that's different to this here. So this is the vinyl record here. I just got the standard vinyl, primarily because like I think this is the best cover like of like the lot. So like as is the way with albums these days, they come out with like a range of like different covers and that. All of them really good for this record though. They're all taken by this photographer I forget like her name, but she's kind of, they're all kind of like also like late 70s early 80s photographs, like quite gritty kind of like northeast kind of working class sort of photographs, and they're really great sort of covers like for like the album. But this is like the main one here. So yeah, like it's a great cover. The rest of the artwork's maybe not anything to write home about. You just get the track list there and nothing else like on like the back of it. And then on the inside here, you just get some like a lyric there, I think from the track Nostalgia's Lie. And then the inner sleeve is again just the full lyrics to all the songs and sort of credits like who plays what like on like every track, which is good to see like as well. But yeah, no pictures of Sam. I mean, the artwork maybe like isn't like anything spectacular, and this is just on the standard like black vinyl there. So anyway, I will just now go over each of the album's tracks in detail. I'll score each song out of 10 and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Everybody on the track. Okay, so the album kicks off with the title track, like as is kind of tradition, like on Sam Fender's album. So People Watching kicks off the album, which is a really great, like upbeat, like sort of like track, a really uplifting song, but quite a bittersweet song, like as well to kick off the record. It's got a great production on it. This one here, very it's like a good mix between kind of guitars and kind of filtered guitars and like some keyboard sort of work like on it as well. The opening riff reminds me a little bit of, like, I've got noted here, Dire Straits' Walk of Life, and it's the same kind of sort of vibe, like quite upbeat, quite sort of like peppy sort of like vibe, like to it. But the lyrics on this are like very, very, very strong, like as well. Essentially, it's about the kind of death, like of a like sort of like mentor, like of like Sammy sort of describes her like as like sort of like a mother kind of like figure. I think it was her. I think it was his old drama teacher, but very much somebody who kind of championed him, kind of like sort of growing up and kind of sort of like gave him like kind of confidence to sort of like perform like and like whatnot. And it's essentially like they must have like stayed kind of close, like sort of like after. Like even after like his like sort of time like at school, and it's kind of like kind of talks about his kind of observations and kind of his people watching while sort of going through like this kind of like this sort of like this situation like of grief kind of thing. And it's got some great kind of there's so different like layers to like the lyrics of this song here. So it talks about like kind of like the hospital itself, like he describes like as like the place was falling to bits, understaffed and overruled by callous hands. The poor nurses work around the clock, and the beauty of youth, it left my breaking heart. So it's just this kind of quite stream of conscious lyrics, but very touching lyrics. And I think it's also, you can easily miss those kind of because the music arrangement like is so like kind of like upbeat, like and like anthemic. This is the track produced by Adam Grandisiel, like, and again his production is just great. Like on like this song, it always feels like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. This song, like as like it goes on, and I can't suss out. Like I mean, like I do play guitar, and I can't suss out if this song changes key. Like I've not been able to work out like if it actually does, but it feels it's got that sense that it's always growing and always evolving. So no, it's a fantastic track. People Watching, a 10 out of 10. Okay, and that is followed up with the track Nostalgia's Lie. Now this is a really good track. This is a song he has been performing live a little bit, like on like the shows sort of like leading up to the release of this album, and it's a really good track. There's very kind of Heartland rock sort of vibe to it. I hear a lot of Tom Petty like in this track, specifically the song The Waiting. It's got that same kind of sort of like jingle jangly sort of 12-string sort of like guitar kind of like riff like to it, but also reminds me a bit of Rockin' Chair by Oasis as well, like in like the kind of like the like sort of like the melody, like I think is at like the end of like each of the verses. It sounds very kind of similar to like Rockin' Chair. Lyrically, this song is essentially about kind of like like looking back, like and like nostalgia, and sort of like things like like can you take me back, darling, to somewhere I feel safe. So it's quite a wistful song, and it's a really good it's a really good kind of comforting song. I think again this is a track that features like Brooke Bentham quite heavily. Now Sam and Brooke sort of like go back quite a few years. They met on the kind of Newcastle kind of busking scene like as teenagers, and they've stayed in touch, and she's kind of joined sort of Sam like that, and she's sort of joined like the Sam Fender band and is all over this album, and I think like is all the better for it. Really adds a kind of new dimension to kind of Sam's music, like having like this kind of female voice to kind of bounce off. I think it works like an absolute treat, and like it really like helps to like elevate like a track like such as this. Okay, the next one up is called Chin Up. Now this is another pretty solid track, I think, like on the album. It's a song where kind of Fender's talking about trying to keep his spirits high even when he's struggling with like his mental health, and he kind of like sort of because he's reminding himself that there's people who are in a kind of worse position than he is, that he's a kind of successful kind of singer-songwriter, like so he's kind of almost kind of he's kind of berating himself, saying that I don't really have a kind of right to feel sort of down sort of thing. And like he describes himself like on this track as entitled, idle and dumb. 28 and still sucking my thumb, and kind of contrasts sort of like his sort of feelings to sort of like those still living like in like his hometown, like who are struggling with debt and sort of struggling with like unemployment and sort of like even like sort of like paying like heating bills, like on like this song, like he kind of mentions. I do really like the track. I think it's one of the more average tracks like on the album for me. I think the melody like on the chorus is good, it's catchy, but it's maybe just a little bit generic. It doesn't maybe feel quite as it's definitely not quite a standout like as like some of like the album tracks that we'll get onto. Okay, next track up on the album is called Wild Long Line. Now, you might see that I've been joined by like my girlfriend parents' dog there, Rein, who like I'm looking after like over like the next sort of like couple of days. So yeah, and hopefully he kind of stays quiet for like the rest like of like the video. But no, like Wild Long Line is a really, really, really good song. I think it is probably my favorite like on the album. Like I would say, it's essentially lyrically paints a very vivid picture of kind of returning to like your hometown. He sort of sings like it's like that time of the year again, so possibly kind of talking about kind of Christmas time, sort of like December time, about kind of like like reuniting with like old friends, but kind of I guess sort of maybe struggling to fit in like a little bit, but also kind of falling back into old and kind of bad habits sort of thing. Like so he kind of talks about like everyone you've ever known like once at large, and kind of talks about kind of like sort of drug taking like on like this song here about sort of like I'll line you up for another wild long lie, but it's kind of not talking about drugs in a kind of indulgent kind of sort of like rock star kind of sort of way, you know. It's very much firmly rooted in the kind of like this scenario of kind of meeting up with kind of old friends and kind of like sort of like reliving bits of like your past, like possibly. Musically, it's a really, really, really good song. It's quite a folky track, this one here. I think when it starts, it's very similar to something like Spit of You from his last album, but then this track I think just evolves and really takes you on like a journey. I think it must be the longest song that Fender's ever done. It's over 6 minutes long, this, and it just really takes you on like such a journey and like a progression like in like the arrangement on it, starting with quite a kind of like rootsy kind of sort of folky sort of track, and then going into like just like an awesome guitar solo, and then by the end you've got like a saxophone player, Johnny, doing some excellent saxophone work like on it. It just really builds up, and again this is a track like where the production does a lot of like the heavy lifting and just really makes a very magical song, I think, and is like as I said, possibly my favourite like on the whole album. Okay, the next track up on the album is called Arm's Length. Now, this was another single released from the album, and again was a track that he'd done live like quite a bit, sort of like on like the tour preceding this. And ever since I heard the live version of it, I adored this song. I just think it's just got a great pulsating beat to it, and again some great harmony vocals from like Brooke like on it like as well, who is apparently for this track the reason why it's on the album. I think Fender didn't really think much like off like the track. He kind of thought it was a throwaway riff, but Brooke was very much like, this is a great song, you need to work and you need to develop this, you need to put this on the album. And I'm so glad that like they persevered and like managed to get this onto the album. It's a track which I guess lyrically is about the kind of perhaps the difficulties of kind of navigating like relationships, certainly like in like this sort of like certainly like in like this like day and age, about sort of being quite reluctant to sort of like open like yourself up fully. It's got this like the kind of like the motif line on it is like, do you have to know me inside out? And it's like that line, like the way it comes around, is probably one of Fender's best earworms, you know. It's just such a catchy, hooky line. And yes, it's quite repetitive, this song, because it kind of very much is just sort of verse, chorus, and the chorus is just that line. But again, it's the way they sing it, like Sam and Brooke's voices melding so well. And then again, the way that you get different instrumentation coming in. I think there's different synth parts that come in. You get like a harmonica like on it like as well. And it just has a kind of, like quite like a hypnotic quality, I think, this song. So Arm's Length, a real favourite of mine, a 10 out of 10. Okay, now we open up side 2 with the track Crumbling Empire. Now this song is a very, very, very 80s sounding track. As soon as this song came on, I thought of Africa by Toto. Very similar kind of like production on it. I think it's a combination of like the drums and the guitar sound. Yeah, just really kind of like sort of like early 80s vibe like to it. But this song is another brilliant track. Again, it's quite a political song, this one here, about essentially like a country kind of falling apart, like a crumbling empire. So it kind of talks initially like about kind of like a rundown neighborhood like in like Detroit. I think that was where kind of Fender was writing started writing this song like on like a US tour, but then kind of then becomes a lot more personal, talking about, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, like if it's like his actual dad, but he says that my dad used to work like in like the railway yard, and how it kind of got privatized, and he says like my mother delivered most of the kids in this town, and my stepdad drove a tank for the crown, they left them homeless down and out in their crumbling empire. So there's maybe a kind of bit of fiction kind of like melded into like the track, but it just paints a very vivid picture kind of thing, and it's also got a kind of great kind of sense of self-awareness to it as well, you know, like he sings this great line about like he sings this great line about like I'm not preaching, I'm just talking, I don't wear the shoes I used to walk in. So very much like he's acknowledging, you know, that he's managed to escape from this sort of like this like way of life kind of thing, like, and become like hugely successful, but he's still, you know, able to talk about it with this kind of self-awareness that he's not in that situation like anymore. So I thought that was a great line, and I do love the kind of like the whole kind of structure of this track, how it almost doesn't like have a chorus, you know, it's just like that motif like Crumbling Empires comes in like at like the end of every verse sort of thing, so it kind of like that's the kind of substitute there for like a chorus, and I think works really well. Now, my only gripe with this track, yes, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10, but I have still got a gripe with it, is that I think they fade it out too early. Like, they kind of, like, it literally, like, you get to, like, the end of the song, and then this guitar solo starts, and you think, wow, it kind of just lifts the song up, like, even more like, than it already was. And then it starts to fade out, and it's a very long, gradual fade out, but it's still fading out, and it just feels like, no, they could have just kept the song going, which I don't normally say for tracks which are like, yeah, like over 5 minutes, but I just think this song could have been stretched out to, yeah, it's like 6 minutes, like at least kind of thing, just to get that full guitar solo in, I think. I think they just kind of cut it off too soon, which, you know, I guess it's one of these tracks, it like leaves you wanting more, which really can only be like a good thing, you know, like it's at least you're not kind of reaching for the kind of skip button or like getting bored sort of thing with it. Like I just wish that there was a bit more like off like this track, so it would get a 10 out of 10 for like what we do have off it though, because it is just a great song. Okay, now the next track up on the album is called A Little Bit Closer. Now this song, if I'm being honest, is possibly my least favourite like on like the album. I just think musically it's maybe a little bit generic and forgettable for kind of Sam Fender. In terms of like its like arrangement, it kind of it just doesn't feel like it's adding like anything new to the table like for like the album. But lyrically though, it is like a bit stronger though. Like once you kind of like delve into like the lyrics, which essentially is kind of talking about Fender's experience with kind of like organised religion, and kind of essentially kind of him coming to sort of reject like sort of like organised religion on it. And there's particularly some biting lines about how sort of like LGBT people were kind of sort of treated like sort of like in like religion. That he sings like I was lost in their sermons and lies at God camp, trying to pray the gay away. Something was shook in me, he sings like on it. So quite biting lines like on like this track. But I just think that maybe musically is like a bit generic. Again, you've got Brooke Bentham doing some great backing vocals like on this, and great harmony vocals like throughout like the chorus. So again, like it's a good song, but I just think by this album standards, it just for me comes across like as like a filler song, like unfortunately. Please don't rain me in. Okay, next up on the album is called Rein Me In. Now this one is another favourite of mine like on the album. like on the surface of it, like musically, it's quite I guess it starts off at least like quite a nice little folky track. You know, really reminds me of one of my favourite bands called like the Lilac Time, just with its quite quite breezy like acoustic guitar. You've got I think it's like a honky tonk piano like on it as well, so it just gives it a really nice kind of bouncy kind of like sort of flavour to it. Again, this is a song which possibly might be influenced by a band called Linda's Farm, which is kind of Newcastle sort of based kind of slightly kind of folky sort of like band whose Fender made like a BBC documentary about like a couple like of years ago. So it's just got a great kind of sort of freewheeling sort of spirit to it, this song here. So it's quite upbeat musically, but lyrically sort of has hides like slightly darker like lyrics like on it, which essentially I think kind of alludes to possibly using drugs like as a form like of escapism kind of thing. He talks about like working myself up to a nice warm bliss, and then this great metaphor sort of like comparing like kind of like a nagging feeling to tetanus, like sort of like in like your ears, like so like one like the only references like to tetanus like I've ever heard like in like a song, but a really really great great lyric. And it's just like sort of like about I guess trying to find sort of like acceptance for living with things that you've previously regretted, and I think it's a great performance on here. Again, vocally is very 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 strong. He sings it quite low like in like his register, but just sounds like particularly like when it gets like the chorus, just so impassioned like on like this song. And again, I think with this, it's that juxtaposition between these darker lyrics, but then with quite a jaunty musical backing. I think the two actually work really really well together like on this track. So yeah, Rein Me In, and probably the most underrated track like on the album, I would say. Okay, and then the next track up is called TV Dinner. Now this one is quite an interesting song. It's quite I guess a kind of stream of consciousness kind of like lyric about how the kind of music business sort of treats artists, particularly those from kind of working class backgrounds and kind of poorer backgrounds. He kind of on this song mentions like Amy Winehouse. He sort of sings like she was just a bairn, they love her now but bled her then, which is a great lyric. And again, it's kind of got like this refrain is like, am I up to this? This sort of it's full of self-doubt, this song, and it's a definite shift like in perspectives as well, like from like his earlier albums, which kind of like I guess now he's singing about being famous, you know, and being one of like the UK's most famous kind of like musicians, which is authentic to who he is now, you know, like he's not like an unknown working class kid like anymore really. So I quite like how he's still writing from the heart, like about himself, but like in like the current situation like that like he's in. Musically, it's quite a dark and brooding song, this one here. It's mostly just Fender like and like piano, but it's got quite a good mix between this kind of quite aggressively sung verses where he is kind of quite sort of like spitting out sort of like the lyrics, and then like as I said, like that line like am I up to this, which he sings right at the top like of like his vocal range, and he's got this kind of very interesting like electronic backing going on. It's a really good song, this one here. It's possibly one that might grow on me like even more, but for the time being I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Okay, and then the penultimate track on the album is called Something Heavy. This one is a more acoustic sort of focused song, this one here. Again, sort of lyrics talk on this about kind of trying to sort of like escape from kind of like your past, like all kind of previous troubles and worries. I guess kind of similar kind of lyrical content to like the track and like Rein Me In, but rather like on like Rein Me In, like where he's turning to sort of I guess like taking drugs to kind of like sort of like comfort like himself. On this track, it's essentially about kind of sort of finding like comfort like in like human connection, like sort of like thing. Like so he's sort of like, it's very much a song about sort of like holding out a hand for someone, sort of like letting them know that like you'll be there. There's a great line about sort of like the kettle's always on kind of thing, like until like we've kind of sorted it out, and sort of like he sort of sings like everybody's here got something heavy, I'll shoulder it for a while, like if you just want a night off, like goes like the chorus. So it's a really good song, quite an optimistic kind of note to sort of like kind of like at this point like on like the album, like I think. So no, like a really good track there, Something Heavy.
Make my day, I'll tell
Okay, now the closing track on the album is called Remember My Name. Now this is a really beautiful, very touching song to finish the album. Lyrically, I'll start with like the lyrics. Essentially, it's about dementia and kind of like written about like his like grandparents sort of song, like from like his granddad's perspective about sort of caring for like his like sort of like grandmother, like sort of thing. And it's like there's some great lines like on it about like, yeah, like to them it's a council house, but to me it's a home sort of thing, and like sort of like a home that you made where the grandkids could play, but it's never the same without you. And yeah, it's just a very powerful song, this, I think. Musically, it features a brass band, like the Easington Colliery Brass Band, which is a very much kind of like sort of reference, I guess, to Sam Fender's kind of working class northeast roots, you know, brass bands synonymous with kind of mining communities, like, and like whatnot. And it's not something you really hear like in kind of like sort of, well, with like pop rock indie music like at all. So I think it's a really, really, really like nice touch, I think. And again, vocally here is just stunning. That he doesn't try to hide his accent like on this song here like at all, and it just feels very personal, like, and like intimate. I guess you probably could describe this song like as like a bit like of like a tearjerker. So yeah, Remember My Name, a fantastic song there to end the album. Okay, so overall, this album would score 92%. So I think this is a cracking album here. I'd say this is his best album to date, actually. Although, in terms of like my score there, I should note that was the same score like I gave 17 Going Under, but I probably soured on that album like a little bit. I think I definitely did like overscore a couple like off like the tracks. But this is definitely his most consistently good album throughout, like I would say. Even though I guess earlier albums like 17 Going Under and Hypersonic Missiles possibly had more indie bangers, I guess, like kind of tracks that could like upbeat songs that could really like get like a crowd going, you know. This album is a lot more introverted, a lot more mellow, but I think it's a very good progression, you know, for Sam Fender. Like, it's a mature progression. It's a deeply personal album, but one that I think still manages to cover quite a broad range of like musical styles like on it as well. Again, I would just give a mention to like one of like the co-producers like on here, like Adam Grandusil. Again, I'm not sure if I'm getting like his name right. The War on Drugs, basically, like who's like produced like this album. And again, his production really gives the album a great cinematic quality, but one that I think actually complements the songs and makes the songs stronger, rather than kind of takes anything away from the kind of personal or like melancholic vibe like of the album. I think if these songs were stripped down, they'd still be good songs, but I think you'd still be missing something. I think it's that combination that really makes this album soar. So no, a great record here from Sam Fender. Probably going to be my album of the year, like, unless like we get like some surprises like sort of like in like the latter half like off like the year. But no, People Watching, a brilliant record here. And yeah, I hope that you check it out, or like you've been like enjoying it. Let me know what some of your favourite tracks are down below in like the comments. And yep, I'll see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.